The morning sun climbs over the Sierra Nevada mountains, casting long shadows across the American River Valley, where you have been working your claim for 3 months without finding more than a few flakes of gold dust. Your name is Samuel Hartwell, and you are 28 years old, a former schoolteacher from Ohio, who abandoned a secure but modest life to chase the promise of fortune in the California goldfields. The year is 1849, and like tens of thousands of other men, you have been drawn west by stories of nuggets the size of chicken eggs lying scattered in streambeds, waiting to make ordinary men wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. Your hands are raw from wielding pick and shovel. Your back aches from countless hours bent over a rocker box, sifting through gravel and sand, and your clothes hang loose on a frame that has shed 20 pounds since arriving in California. The work is harder than anything you experienced in your previous life, where the most strenuous activity was carrying firewood for the schoolhouse stove. But the hope that sustains every man in the goldfields keeps you working from dawn to dusk, driven by the belief that the next shovelful of dirt might contain the fortune that will change your life forever. Your claim sits along a bend in the American River, about 15 miles northeast of the growing settlement of Sacramento. The location seemed promising when you first staked it out, an area where the river slows and drops sediment that might contain gold washed down from the mountains. But months of backbreaking labor have yielded barely enough gold dust to pay for basic supplies and the inflated prices that characterize every aspect of life in the goldfields. A simple meal costs more than you once spent on food for an entire week, while tools and equipment command prices that would seem ridiculous anywhere, except in a place where demand far exceeds supply. Your nearest neighbor is Jeremiah Potter, a grizzled former sailor from Maine, whose weathered face and missing finger testify to a hard life that makes him better suited to frontier conditions than most of the fortune seekers who have flooded into California. His claim lies upstream from yours, and his steady if unspectacular success at finding gold has kept him working the same area for over a year. His practical advice and willingness to share knowledge have helped you avoid some of the costly mistakes that have driven other newcomers back to whatever lives they left behind. The key, Potter explained during one of your evening conversations around a shared campfire, is persistence combined with patience. Most of these fellows expect to get rich in a few weeks, and when that doesn't happen, they either give up or start making desperate decisions that usually end badly. Gold is here, but finding it requires understanding how water moves and where heavy materials settle during different seasons. His words echo in your mind as you prepare for another day of what has become increasingly routine labor. The excitement and optimism that carried you through your first weeks in California have been tempered by the reality of how difficult it is to extract meaningful amounts of gold from even promising locations. The romantic image of 49ers finding instant wealth has given way to understanding that successful mining requires knowledge, persistence, and more than a little luck. Your equipment represents a significant investment of the modest savings you brought from Ohio: a sturdy rocker box for separating gold from gravel, picks and shovels designed for different types of digging, pans for testing promising areas before committing to major excavation efforts, and the various smaller tools needed for efficient operation of a one-man mining operation. The quality of these implements often determines the difference between success and failure, making their purchase one of the most important decisions facing any prospective miner. The work begins each day with an evaluation of conditions that might affect your chances of finding gold. Recent rains can wash new material down from the mountains, potentially bringing gold into areas that were previously barren. But the same storms can also muddy the water and make separation techniques less effective. Understanding these variables and adjusting your methods accordingly represents part of the expertise that separates successful miners from those who struggle despite working equally hard. This particular morning feels different from the countless others that have preceded it, though you cannot immediately identify why. The weather is clear and cool, perfect for the physical labor that mining demands. The river runs with the clarity that makes it easier to spot promising areas where gold might have settled. Perhaps most importantly, your spirits feel more optimistic than they have in weeks, buoyed by some indefinable sense that today might bring the discovery that justifies all the hardship and uncertainty you have endured. You begin work at the lower end of your claim, an area you have excavated several times before without notable success. But Potter's advice about persistence echoes in your mind as you drive your pick into gravel that looks identical to countless other spots you have worked. The repetitive nature of the labor allows your mind to wander, thinking about the life you left behind in Ohio, and wondering whether your family and friends consider your decision to come west foolish or admirable. The first indication that today might be different comes when your shovel strikes something that feels different from the typical rocks and compacted soil that comprise most of the riverbank material. The sensation through the handle suggests something more substantial than a normal stone, and the hollow sound when you probe around it indicates a cavity or different density that warrants investigation. Your heart rate increases slightly as you carefully excavate around the object, trying not to damage whatever lies hidden beneath the surface. What emerges from the hole is a piece of quartz roughly the size of your fist, shot through with veins of yellow metal that catch the morning sunlight with unmistakable brilliance. Even to your inexperienced eye, the amount of gold visible in the sample exceeds anything you have found during your entire time in California. The weight of the specimen feels substantial in your hands, suggesting that this might represent the kind of discovery that transforms lives and validates the sacrifice required to pursue fortune in an untamed land. Your immediate impulse is to shout with excitement and share the discovery with Potter, whose experience could help evaluate the significance of what you have found. But caution, born of 3 months in the goldfields, restrains your enthusiasm as you recognize the potential dangers that accompany any major discovery. Stories circulate constantly about claim jumpers, thieves, and various forms of violence that seem to follow significant finds. The social structures that maintain order in settled communities have little authority in mining camps where law enforcement is sporadic, and justice often depends on the willingness of honest men to defend themselves and their property. You carefully wrap the quartz specimen in a piece of cloth and place it in the bottom of your tool bag, where its presence will not be obvious to casual observers. The location of the find requires marking, so you can return to excavate more thoroughly. But the markers must be subtle enough to avoid drawing attention from the constant stream of prospectors who travel along the river, searching for new opportunities. The balance between securing your discovery and maintaining secrecy becomes the first of many challenges that will test your judgment and character. The rest of the morning passes in a haze of excitement and anxiety as you continue working other parts of your claim, while your mind focuses entirely on the implications of your discovery. The gold visible in the quartz sample suggests the presence of a vein or deposit that might contain far more wealth than anything you dared to hope for when you first arrived in California. But the same discovery also represents dangers that could threaten not just your fortune, but your life if handled improperly. During the midday break, when the heat becomes too intense for efficient work, you make your way to Potter's claim with the carefully wrapped specimen hidden in your pack. His reaction to your discovery will provide the first real assessment of whether your excitement is justified or if inexperience has led you to overestimate the significance of what you have found. His knowledge of gold deposits and mining techniques gives his opinion more weight than your own hopeful evaluation. Potter's weathered face shows no change of expression as he unwraps the quartz and holds it up to catch the sunlight filtering through the trees that shade his camp. His examination is thorough and methodical, turning the specimen to observe the gold from different angles while testing its weight and examining the way the metal has formed within the rock matrix. His silence during this evaluation creates suspense that makes your heart pound with anticipation. "Where exactly did you find this?" he asks finally, his voice carefully neutral as he continues to study the specimen. His tone suggests significance that he is trying not to reveal, either to avoid raising false hopes or to prevent information from being overheard by other miners who might be within listening distance. The caution in his manner reinforces your growing understanding that major discoveries require careful handling to avoid dangerous complications. When you describe the location and circumstances of the find, Potter's expression becomes more serious as he considers the implications of what you have told him. "This is high-grade ore," he explains, keeping his voice low despite the apparent absence of other people in the immediate area. "The amount of gold visible in this sample suggests you may have found the source rather than just pieces that washed down from somewhere else. If there's more where this came from, you could be looking at substantial wealth." His confirmation of your hopeful assessment brings a rush of excitement that you struggle to contain. But Potter's next words introduce sobering realities that temper your elation. "But you need to understand that a discovery like this changes everything about your situation here. Word travels fast in mining camps, and significant finds attract attention from people who would rather steal than dig. You'll need to be careful about how you proceed if you want to keep what you've found." The afternoon is spent in careful excavation of the area where you found the first specimen, working with heightened awareness of your surroundings and constant attention to anyone who might be observing your activities. Potter's warning about the dangers that accompany major discoveries has transformed what should be the happiest day of your mining career into an exercise in stealth and paranoia. Every sound from the river trail makes you pause and evaluate whether approaching footsteps might represent a threat to your security. The additional digging reveals that your initial find was not an isolated specimen, but part of a deposit that extends deeper into the riverbank than you initially excavated. Each shovelful of material yields more quartz samples containing visible gold, suggesting that you have indeed found a significant deposit rather than just scattered pieces. The mounting evidence of substantial wealth creates excitement that wars with growing anxiety about how to protect and profit from your discovery. By late afternoon, you have extracted enough high-grade ore to fill a small sack, representing more gold than most miners find in months of steady work. The weight of the material feels substantial in your hands, and rough calculations based on Potter's estimates suggest a value that exceeds several years of your former teacher's salary. The magnitude of your apparent good fortune seems almost too dramatic to be real, like something from the exaggerated stories that draw fortune seekers to California, rather than the typical reality of hardship and modest returns. But the growing pile of gold-bearing quartz also represents increasing risk, as the value of your discovery becomes impossible to conceal from anyone with knowledge of mining. The specimens must be transported to a secure location where they can be processed to extract the gold, but the journey to town with valuable cargo will expose you to the highway robbery that has become commonplace along routes frequented by successful miners. The challenges of converting raw ore into spendable wealth introduce complications you never considered during your optimistic planning for life in the goldfields. Potter's advice proves invaluable as you plan your next moves, his experience with similar situations providing guidance that could prevent costly or dangerous mistakes. "You can't process this much ore by yourself," he explains, as he examines your growing collection of specimens. "You'll need to take it to one of the stamp mills in Sacramento, but that means traveling with enough wealth to attract every road agent between here and town. You'll need help, and you'll need to be smart about how you do it." His suggestion that you form a temporary partnership with other trusted miners for mutual protection during transport to Sacramento introduces you to the complex social dynamics that govern relationships in mining camps. Success creates opportunities, but also threatens the equality that characterizes groups of men who arrived with similar hopes and resources. Your discovery has the potential to elevate you above your peers in ways that could strain friendships and create resentments that last long after the gold is converted to cash. The evening brings the first test of your ability to maintain secrecy about your discovery as other miners gather around the communal campfire that serves as the social center for your small community of claims along this stretch of river. The conversation follows familiar patterns: complaints about poor luck, speculation about more promising areas, gossip about successful finds in other districts. Your participation in these discussions requires careful attention to avoid revealing information that might compromise your security. But concealing excitement about a major discovery proves more difficult than you anticipated, especially when direct questions probe for details about your day's work and recent activities. Your attempts to deflect such inquiries with vague responses about routine digging and poor results feel forced and unnatural, potentially drawing more attention than honest answers might have generated. The social skills required for managing relationships in mining camps represent an aspect of frontier life that your sheltered background as a schoolteacher never prepared you to handle. The night passes slowly as excitement about your discovery wars with anxiety about the challenges that lie ahead. Sleep proves elusive despite the physical exhaustion that normally guarantees rest after long days of manual labor. Your mind races through possible scenarios for converting your raw ore into spendable wealth while avoiding the numerous threats that seem to accompany any significant success in the goldfields. The complexity of problems you never anticipated during your optimistic journey west demonstrates how unprepared most fortune seekers are for the realities of life in California. Morning brings renewed determination to move forward with plans for processing your ore, despite the risks and complications involved. Potter's offer to accompany you to Sacramento provides the protection and expertise needed to navigate safely through the dangers that await anyone traveling with valuable cargo. His willingness to delay his own work to help with your situation reflects the frontier solidarity that develops among men facing common challenges in hostile environments. The preparation for the journey requires careful attention to details that could determine whether you reach Sacramento safely or fall victim to the criminal elements that prey on successful miners. Your gold-bearing ore must be packed in ways that conceal its value from casual observation, while remaining accessible if you need to defend your property. Weapons, supplies, and transportation arrangements all require planning that balances efficiency against security considerations. As you prepare to leave the claim that has been your home for 3 months, you realize that your life is about to change in ways that extend far beyond simple financial improvement. The discovery of significant wealth will test your character, judgment, and ability to navigate challenges that have nothing to do with the hard work and persistence that led to your success. The next phase of your California adventure will require skills that no amount of preparation could have provided, testing your ability to adapt and survive in circumstances that would have seemed impossible to imagine during your quiet life as an Ohio schoolteacher. The journey to Sacramento begins before dawn, with you and Potter leading a pack mule loaded with what appears to be ordinary mining equipment and supplies. Hidden beneath layers of legitimate cargo, your gold-bearing quartz represents wealth that could transform your life forever if you can transport it safely through country where road agents and claim jumpers operate with impunity. The early start provides the advantage of traveling during hours when criminal elements are less likely to be active, but it also means navigating unfamiliar trails in darkness that conceals both obstacles and potential threats. Potter's Springfield rifle rests across his saddle, while your own weapon, a Colt revolver purchased from a departing miner, feels heavy and unfamiliar at your hip. Neither of you are experienced gunfighters, but the visible presence of arms serves as a deterrent to opportunistic thieves who prefer victims unable to defend themselves. The irony that your discovery of gold has forced you to become an armed traveler is not lost on you, representing another way that frontier conditions reshape men's characters and choices. The trail to Sacramento winds through foothills dotted with mining camps of various sizes and degrees of permanence. Some are substantial settlements with stores, saloons, and other businesses that serve the needs of local miners. Others consist of nothing more than a few tents clustered around promising claims, their inhabitants living in conditions that would shock people accustomed to civilized amenities. The diversity of these communities reflects the broad spectrum of humanity that the gold rush has drawn to California from every corner of the world. Your first significant challenge comes at a checkpoint established by a group calling themselves the Miners Protective Association, where armed men demand to inspect cargo and assess fees for safe passage through their territory. The legitimacy of their authority is questionable, but their weapons are real, and resistance could prove fatal regardless of legal technicalities. Potter's experience with such situations proves invaluable as he negotiates passage without revealing the true nature of your cargo. Routine mining supplies, he explains, with the casual manner of someone accustomed to dealing with frontier bureaucracy. Tools and equipment for a new claim we're developing upstream. His ability to provide plausible explanations while maintaining an air of unexceptional normalcy demonstrates skills that have obviously been developed through previous encounters with similar situations. The inspection that follows is cursory, more interested in collecting fees than conducting thorough searches. But the incident provides a sobering introduction to the lawlessness that characterizes much of the California goldfields, where the absence of established government has created a vacuum filled by various groups claiming authority to regulate travel and commerce. Your teacher's background included no preparation for navigating such a complex and potentially dangerous political landscape, where making wrong decisions about whom to trust or how to respond to demands for tribute could result in robbery, violence, or death. The midday halt at a way station operated by a family of emigrants from Missouri provides temporary respite from the constant vigilance required when traveling with valuable cargo through hostile territory. The proprietor, a weathered woman named Sarah Collins, whose husband was killed in a mining accident, has created a business serving meals and providing shelter to travelers making the Sacramento run. Her establishment represents an island of civilization and safety in a region where such amenities are rare and precious. During the meal of beef stew and fresh bread, luxuries after months of camp cooking, you overhear conversations that provide disturbing insights into the level of violence plaguing the region. Stories of successful miners found murdered along remote trails, of entire camps being raided by organized gangs, of claim disputes settled through gunfights rather than legal proceedings, create a picture of California that bears little resemblance to the golden opportunity described in the newspapers that convinced you to abandon your Ohio teaching position. Mrs. Collins, whose experience with countless travelers has given her insights into the realities of gold rush life, offers advice that reflects hard-earned wisdom about survival in lawless territory. The men who get rich and live to enjoy it are the ones who keep their mouths shut and their eyes open, she explains, while refilling your coffee cup. Too many fellows think finding gold is the hard part, but it's what happens afterward that usually determines whether they end up wealthy or dead. Her words prove prophetic as the afternoon portion of your journey reveals evidence of the violence that has claimed numerous victims along this route. A burned-out wagon beside the trail, obviously the result of a robbery gone wrong, provides a stark reminder of what awaits travelers who cannot defend themselves or who make tactical errors when confronted by armed criminals. The sight sends a chill through you, despite the warm afternoon air, emphasizing the very real dangers that surround your attempt to convert raw ore into spendable wealth. Potter's reaction to such grim reminders demonstrates the philosophical approach that has allowed him to survive longer than most in the goldfields. Violence has always been part of frontier life, he observes with the matter-of-fact tone of someone who has witnessed too much death to be shocked by additional examples. The key is understanding the difference between reasonable precautions and paranoid behavior that interferes with necessary activities. You can't let fear prevent you from doing what needs to be done, but you also can't ignore real threats. The approach to Sacramento brings both relief and new challenges as the trail joins the main road, carrying heavy traffic of commercial wagons, stagecoaches, and individual travelers heading to and from California's rapidly growing capital city. The increased population provides some protection against highway robbery, but it also means greater scrutiny of your cargo and more opportunities for observant criminals to identify potentially valuable targets. The final miles of your journey require balancing the safety that comes with numbers against the risk of unwanted attention. Sacramento itself overwhelms your senses with its scale and energy, a city that has grown from practically nothing to a bustling commercial center in just a few short years. The streets bustle with activity as merchants, miners, speculators, and adventurers from around the world conduct business in a dozen different languages. The rapid construction of buildings to house this exploding population has created a chaotic mixture of architectural styles and materials, from sturdy brick structures to hastily assembled wooden shanties. The stamp mill recommended by Potter occupies a substantial building near the river, where the sounds of crushing machinery provide constant evidence of the gold processing that forms the foundation of Sacramento's economy. The facility processes ore for dozens of miners daily, converting raw material into refined gold that can be weighed, assayed, and converted into coin or bank drafts. But the concentration of wealth in such locations also attracts criminal attention, requiring security measures that add complexity and cost to every transaction. Your first meeting with mill owner Heinrich Steinberg, a German immigrant whose technical expertise has made him indispensable to the local mining community, provides education in the business aspects of gold recovery that extend far beyond the simple digging that occupies most miners' attention. His evaluation of your ore samples yields estimates that confirm Potter's assessment of their exceptional quality, but his explanation of processing costs, assay fees, and security arrangements introduces complications you never anticipated. This is very high-grade material, Steinberg confirms, as he examines your specimens under a magnifying glass. The processing should yield substantial returns, but ore of this quality will attract attention from people you would prefer to avoid. I recommend arranging for bank transfer rather than taking payment in cash or gold, and you should consider hiring guards for any travel after the processing is complete. The week required for processing your ore passes slowly as anxiety about security wars with excitement about the wealth you are about to realize. Sacramento's hotels, saloons, and gambling establishments provide numerous opportunities to spend money while waiting. But Potter's advice about maintaining a low profile keeps you away from the most notorious establishments where successful miners traditionally celebrate their good fortune. The discipline required to avoid attention while possessing knowledge of impending wealth tests your character in ways that the physical hardship of mining never challenged. When Steinberg finally completes the processing and presents you with the results, the amount exceeds even your most optimistic estimates. The refined gold represents more wealth than you could have earned in a decade of teaching, enough to return to Ohio as a rich man or to invest in larger mining operations that could generate even greater returns. But the magnitude of your success also emphasizes the dangers that now surround every aspect of your situation, from the immediate challenge of converting gold into safely transportable assets to the long-term problems of managing sudden wealth. The decision to wire the majority of your proceeds to a bank in San Francisco, rather than attempting to transport such wealth overland, reflects lessons learned during your perilous journey to Sacramento. The telegraph system that now connects California's major cities provides a secure method for transferring funds, though the fees and complexity of such transactions represent another aspect of gold rush economics that your rural background never prepared you to navigate. Potter's knowledge of such sophisticated financial arrangements proves invaluable in avoiding costly mistakes. But keeping a portion of your wealth in readily available form creates new challenges, as word of your success inevitably spreads through Sacramento's tight-knit community of miners, merchants, and assorted fortune seekers. Despite your efforts to maintain secrecy, the processing of high-grade ore cannot be completely concealed from people whose livelihoods depend on monitoring such activities. Within days of completing your transaction with Steinberg, you begin noticing increased attention from individuals whose interest in your movements seems suspiciously intense. The first direct threat comes in the form of a business proposition presented by three men who corner you outside your hotel one evening. Their leader, a scarred individual who introduces himself as Captain Reynolds, claims to represent a syndicate interested in purchasing information about the location of your discovery. His polite language cannot disguise the underlying menace in his manner, and his companion's positioning makes clear that refusing their offer could result in immediate violence. "We understand you've had exceptional luck at your claim," Reynolds explains, with the false friendliness of a predator attempting to lull its prey. "Our organization specializes in developing promising properties, and we're prepared to offer generous terms for detailed information about your recent discovery. Of course, such cooperation would also ensure your continued safety while conducting business in Sacramento." The thinly veiled extortion attempt represents exactly the kind of situation Potter warned you about, where success attracts dangerous attention from people willing to use violence to appropriate others' achievements. Your response requires careful calculation of competing risks, immediate physical danger if you refuse their demands against the long-term consequences of yielding to criminal pressure. The confrontation tests your courage and judgment in ways that no classroom situation ever challenged your character. Potter's timely arrival provides the opportunity to extricate yourself from immediate danger, but his intervention also escalates the situation beyond simple extortion to something approaching open conflict. His reputation as someone not to be trifled with, earned through years of surviving frontier conditions, carries weight that your own inexperience cannot command. But his protection also makes you dependent on his continued presence and goodwill, complicating your relationship in ways that could prove problematic. "These gentlemen were just leaving," Potter announces with quiet authority as his hand rests casually on his pistol grip. His calm demeanor contrasts sharply with the tension radiating from Reynolds and his associates, but the underlying threat is unmistakable to anyone familiar with frontier dynamics. The confrontation ends without violence, but the promise of future encounters hangs in the air like smoke from a recently extinguished fire. The incident forces you to confront the reality that your mining success has fundamentally altered your situation in California, transforming you from an anonymous fortune seeker into a target for criminal elements that prey on successful miners. The comfortable anonymity you enjoyed during months of unsuccessful digging has been replaced by unwanted notoriety that complicates every aspect of your daily existence. Simple activities like visiting stores or eating meals now require constant awareness of your surroundings and potential threats. The decision to return to your claim requires careful planning to avoid the road agents who undoubtedly now know about your success and will be watching for opportunities to intercept you during travel. Potter's suggestion that you take a circuitous route through less frequented areas adds time and difficulty to the journey, but reduces the likelihood of encountering organized criminal groups that focus their attention on main travel routes. The precautions necessary for safe travel demonstrate how success has complicated rather than simplified your life in the goldfields. But the return to your claim also brings the opportunity to further develop the deposit that generated your initial wealth, potentially multiplying your success beyond anything you originally dared to hope. The high-grade ore you discovered appears to be part of a larger formation that could yield substantial additional wealth if properly exploited. However, the work required to extract and process larger quantities of material will require hiring help, expanding your operation in ways that make secrecy impossible and security even more challenging. The process of recruiting trustworthy workers proves more difficult than you anticipated, as your reputation for recent success attracts applicants whose motives may extend beyond simple employment to include plans for appropriating your wealth through theft or violence. Potter's assistance in evaluating potential employees provides protection against the most obvious threats, but the challenge of maintaining security while expanding operations represents a constant source of anxiety that transforms your mining activities from hopeful enterprise to nerve-wracking business venture. The legal challenges surrounding mining claims add another layer of complexity to your situation, as California's rapidly evolving laws and inconsistent enforcement create opportunities for claim jumpers and corrupt officials to appropriate successful properties through quasi-legal means. Your lack of experience with legal matters, combined with the rudimentary nature of frontier justice, makes you vulnerable to sophisticated schemes that use official-sounding procedures to steal claims from miners who lack the knowledge or connections needed to defend their interests effectively. The hiring of a lawyer recommended by Steinberg provides some protection against legal challenges to your claim, but it also introduces you to another aspect of gold rush economics, where professional services command premium prices and ethical standards vary widely. The retainer required by attorney James Morrison represents a substantial expense, but his knowledge of mining law and connections within California's emerging legal system prove essential for protecting your interests against various threats that combine legal technicalities with criminal intent. As winter approaches and mining activities slow due to weather conditions, you find yourself in the unprecedented position of being a wealthy man whose success has created more problems than it solved. The gold that was supposed to provide freedom and security has instead made you a target for criminal violence and legal manipulation. Your teacher's salary in Ohio now seems like a simpler and safer way to earn a living, despite being a fraction of what you have gained through mining. But the wealth you have accumulated also provides opportunities that extend far beyond anything your previous life could have offered. Investment possibilities in San Francisco, real estate, Sacramento business ventures, and expanded mining operations promise to multiply your success many times over if managed wisely. The challenge lies in distinguishing between legitimate opportunities and elaborate schemes designed to separate successful miners from their newfound wealth. The relationships you have formed during your time in California, particularly your friendship with Potter and your business connections with Steinberg and Morrison, represent a network of trust and mutual support that provides some protection against the isolation and vulnerability that often accompany sudden wealth. These men understand the challenges you face because they have witnessed similar situations countless times, and their advice and assistance prove invaluable for navigating the complex world of frontier business and politics. As you sit beside your campfire on a cold December evening, looking out over the claim that has transformed your life, you reflect on the journey that brought you from an Ohio schoolhouse to a California mining camp. The discovery of gold has provided wealth beyond your original dreams, but it has also introduced challenges and dangers that your sheltered background never prepared you to handle. The simple goal of finding enough gold to improve your circumstances has evolved into a complex struggle to protect and multiply wealth while surviving in an environment where success makes you a target. The future stretches ahead with possibilities both exciting and frightening, offering opportunities for greater wealth and achievement alongside dangers that could result in the loss of everything you have gained. Your success in the goldfields has proven that ordinary men can achieve extraordinary things when circumstances align with determination and luck. But it has also demonstrated that maintaining such success requires skills and knowledge that extend far beyond the physical labor that initially brought you to California. Tomorrow will bring new challenges as you continue to work your claim while managing the business and security concerns that accompany significant wealth. The simple life of a struggling miner has been replaced by the complex existence of a successful entrepreneur whose decisions affect not only his own future, but the livelihoods of the men he employs and the safety of the community where he has chosen to make his fortune. The gold that promised freedom has instead created responsibilities that tie you more closely to California and its dangerous opportunities than you ever imagined possible.